Welcome back to this review of Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. Today we're going to go over episode 2, Graveyard Rats, directed by Vincenzo Natali. So this one I gave like a 3 out of 5 stars. It was okay. For starters, this particular episode was a lot less my thing than the previous one, Lot 36. And I thought that this episode went on way too long. They explore both graveyard rats and like a secret mystical possibly god underground cave system thing, and I really feel like they should have done one or the other, preferably the graveyard rats themselves, because the big rat monster they used was really cool. And honestly, like the corpse creature that they made, while the practical effects are great, it was like acceptable, which is better than you see in a lot of movies today and definitely a lot of TV shows, but it wasn't like overwhelming or breathtaking or like something unique I hadn't seen before. So I probably would have preferred it if we'd stuck just with the graveyard rats. Also, I think I was supposed to feel some kind of way about the actual graveyard robbing and like how it was saying something about humanity's greed and not letting people rest, and like how sometimes desire for objects lingers beyond death. And I just don't think I vibe with any of those themes. For starters, the people who were robbing the graves, first like these two ruffians and then our main character, all of them seemed like they were in pretty desperate straits. And while it did seem like they, had gotten themselves in the situation through like gambling or crime or addiction, they still were stealing things to survive. And I kind of looked at them like digging up the bodies and taking the jewelry and stuff off of the corpses a lot like dumpster diving. And like dumpster diving isn't something I think is wrong to do. It usually just makes me feel bad that people have got to that point where that's what they're doing. And to a certain degree, I think like burying a bunch of finery with a person is kind of wasteful. That being said, I did find anytime our main character was like looking in the corpse's mouth for gold teeth and like pulling the teeth to be like incredibly disturbing. I'm really sensitive about like dental things, and I was upset and looked away during those scenes. Also, I think like quite a few of the corpses were really interesting to look at. The first one we see, which is like a dead woman in her grave, like what they did with the eyes was really neat. So some of the visuals were quite compelling. I just didn't feel like the story was matching that level. Our main character is like a little bit sympathetic, but he talks way too much for way too long, and he's kind of like an exposition dump. And he's also just like a little too self-indulgent and self-pitying. And I think I would have preferred a character who was a little bit more stiff upper lip and a little bit less like clownish as the lead in this. Or like, I don't know, a character who was a little bit more scrappy, a little tougher. I just would have enjoyed that more, I think, for this kind of story than who we got. Like, I get that he's got like these clownish reactions to like the supernatural thing that's happening. He's having like these hallucinations and we're going with him on them. So now we're kind of wondering a little bit like, which part is real and which part is not. But it just didn't 100% work for me, and I found myself looking at my watch trying to like get to the end of it. There is an interesting use of gender in this particular short. There's one female character who is a grieving widow of a wealthy man, and she insists that the man be buried with like this priceless sword he has because he would want it, and it was something that he loved and like sort of was part of him almost. And her son like kind of reminds him that if she does that, then she can never get the sword back, and this is something she really wants to do. And she's really insistent this is how his memory and legacy should stand. I'm wondering if this is trying to say something either about grief and caring more about appropriately mourning and honoring the dead, or if this is saying something about like women inherently being more in tune with their emotions, honoring the dead, like doing what's right by people versus what's right materially, because everybody else is more concerned about the materialism of the sword. So overall, I'd say Graveyard Rats is a lot weaker than Lot 36. It has some bright spots and it's saying some interesting things. I think thematically the supernatural element along with the premise marry a lot better than they did in Lot 36. I just like wasn't into this one for whatever reasons and would have a hard time recommending it to people. It did leave me thinking and with questions after the fact. I just wasn't that invested and didn't think about them as long. So far, this one's definitely lower than Lot 36. We'll have to see where it ranks when I'm done watching all of the episodes. I've really been enjoying Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. Have you been watching it? If so, let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. And as always, keep reading. Bye!